Welcome to Eflows Net Interviews, a program to discuss the latest policy, science, and practice of environmental flows with the people making it happen. I'm Michael McLean, Professor of Ecohydrology at IHE Delft in the Netherlands. The Nile Basin Initiative is an intergovernmental partnership of 10 Nile Basin countries, serving as a forum for consultation and coordination for the sustainable management and development of water and related resources. Recently, the Nile Basin Initiative has developed a strategy for managing e-flows. This strategy is badly needed because most countries of the Nile have not developed standards or guidelines for determining and protecting the basic water requirements of ecosystems, and this limits their ability to develop their resources sustainably. The strategy establishes guiding principles for managing e-flows. It lays out a framework with detailed steps to guide countries in setting e-flow standards, and it identifies strategic actions to implement e-flows across the basin. These strategic actions are to be mainstreamed into work programs and action plans at the national, sub-regional, and basin level. Dr. Mohsen Al-Arabawi is a policy specialist at the Nile Basin Initiative, and he joins me today via Skype from Entebbe, Uganda, to discuss the strategy. Welcome, Mohsen.
Thank you, Mike.
So this is an ambitious, even courageous strategy for environmental protection in the basin, a basin with so many development needs and such variable water resources. Can you tell us a little bit about the origins of the strategy and the process that led to it?
Thank you very much, Michael. Indeed, it's a very ambitious and powerful policy instrument that will ensure that all the Nile Basin countries are able to preserve, conserve, and sustain the ecosystems and ecosystem services and the values of those ecosystems for the livelihood of the people who are totally dependent on those resources. As you mentioned, there is substantial development basin-wide in all countries. They have very ambitious socio-economic development plans. And water and the natural resources are basic inputs for those development strategic plans. What we need is to regulate the inputs and resources and to manage them sustainably and efficiently in order to, on one hand, to make those plans realities at the national level, sub-basin level, and basin-wide. On the other hand, is to sustain the performance and the values and the services of the ecosystems and the water and related resources for this generation and generations to come. This is the essence of coming up with the environmental flow strategy and framework. In 2011, we developed what we call the Nile Basin Sustainability Framework. That is basically defining the key strategic directions, socio-economic development, water and related resources management, environment management, and climate change. Under key strategic direction 3, we developed a suite of policies, strategies, guidelines, safeguards, standard operational procedures, and practices. This is one of the policy instruments that were mentioned and emphasized under the Nile Basin Sustainability Framework in 2011.
Mohsen, I'd like to ask you about the heart of the strategy, which is a framework that consists of 7 phases that step by step provide guidance to countries on the determination of environmental flow requirements. And these steps employ some of the best practice in environmental flow science today, which means that there are some significant data requirements and also requirements for scientific expertise. So can you tell me a bit about NBI's understanding of the level of availability of data, the level of expertise available, and also how flexibility is built into the framework?
It took us 2 years to develop this strategy and implement the manual and the technical guidelines. We had engaged all the environmental flow experts, officials, and practitioners from the Nile Basin countries from the starting. when we explore the international practices in order to benchmark and to establish a solid environmental flow assessment framework and methodology within the Nile, they were part of that. We have undertaken training, hands-on, and some kind of involving them in the field work, in the surveys, in the e-flow assessment, in the data collection, in the modeling. So they are now completely familiar with the technique and approach and methodology. We have sufficient data on the hydrology and the hydraulics. Our problem is the aquatic data. There is very little data. But now with the consciousness and the awareness and the stewardship that we established within the Nile Basin country, they started their part in collecting, compiling the data that is required. We are establishing a center of excellence for environmental flow within MBI. Those data will be processed, will be transferred into patterns and configurations, and will be given or made accessible to all countries in order to assist them to generate their own knowledge base and capacity in environmental flow assessment. We have developed an implementation manual that is very comprehensive. It describes step by step what needs to be done, even if somebody is a newcomer to the field of environmental flow. The definition, the methodology, the step by step, the approach, everything is thoroughly expressed and comprehensively described in this technical document. The framework is 7 steps, and we emphasized, we underlined from minute one that we are not specifically giving them environmental flow in terms of flow, duration, frequency, timing, and location. We are giving them an envelope, a wide range of planning alternatives for them to choose which is good, which is bad, what do you prefer. It includes considerable negotiation and trade-off. When we do the scoping, what we call the alignment and situation assessment, this needs countries to sit together and define the resource objectives, how they would like to see the endpoints, what are the quality objectives they are aiming at, and what are the indicators based on which they will be assessing whether it's working or not. Setting the resource quality objective is done by the countries. To establish the hydrological foundation, we will assist the countries, classifying the ecosystem types and whether they are pristine, whether they are moderately or severely modified, whether they are in unacceptable conditions or acceptable conditions, and what are the measures that are required in order to maintain them. We describe the flow alterations, and we establish the flow ecosystem services, mutual influences and interaction. What are the linkages between them? Then we set a range of curves. What are the risk zone? What are the risk for all the endpoints? And we give them a wide range. Then it's a policy decision whether to go with the development option A. And then what are the trade-offs? What are the cause effect? This causal link between environmental flow management and applications and the socio-economic development goals, master planning, and so forth is purely a policy one.
Mohsen, as we've learned in examples around the world, the excellent technical work that's gone into the development of the strategy and the plans that you've described to provide technical support to the countries to define credible and meaningful environmental flow standards for their countries, the challenge is always in the implementation. So does NBI intend to continue supporting countries into the implementation phase? And what are some of your ideas for how to do that?
We have a long-term plan, but let us talk about the crash course. Now, we are initiating in 2018 to have a course assessment for the entire Nile Basin. So the Nile Basin will have environmental flow assessment at the key strategic location or
good.
the location of transboundary significance. This will feed into the country's plans to operationalize the environmental flow strategies on one hand, and on the other, it will give like an idea where are the sites and location and Nile reaches and wetlands and ecosystems that are on critical conditions and they need further detailed or fine assessment, comprehensive e-flow assessment at those locations. So our entry point will be the course assessment of the entire Nile Basin environmental flows. Second, we are now offering the countries, because you know, when it comes to the transboundary dimension, you might come up with purely justified and evidence-based environmental flow assessment for a certain location, but because of the upstream, downstream, because of the development plans, because of some of the activities that are practiced by many population that are relying on those ecosystems, it's kind of sensitive. So we will be like advising the countries, providing the advisories, the support, and the technical assistance in order for them to talk to each other. We will be enriching the dialogue, but not imposing anything. We will have the wide range of options and planning alternatives. We will keep developing more options according to the dialogue and the outcomes and the process. In all cases, we will provide training, capacity development, and technical support required. So after this course assessment for the entire Nile Basin, then we will be focusing on the area that call for urgent or specific special attention. We will have the complete environmental flow assessment at sub-basin level and maybe at national level if required. And then we will have like an environmental flow forum for the countries to deliberate, exchange experience, and it's not only to update them on what's happening, what are the stats, and what is our expert advisory on how to proceed, but to build the confidence, the ownership by the countries, and to allow them to draw the roadmap, how to make environmental flow an essential component or part of their strategies, institutional framework, and policy development, and most importantly, in their water resources planning and management practices at the national and the basin-wide level.
Excellent, thank you. It's such a comprehensive effort. So much thought has gone into it, and so much progress has been made already. As you describe what's coming next, it seems like there will be many people involved, and I wonder, for those that might be listening to you now that are engaged in the countries, are there opportunities for people to become involved and to support these efforts? And if so, what steps might they take? Who should they be communicating with?
They can communicate with the NileSec. NileSec is leading this effort. However, the support is much needed at the SAPs, the subsidiary action programs.
Yes.
The NELSAP coordination unit, the Eastern Nile Technical Office, Technical Regional Office, and the NileSec. Although we are very active in terms of policies, strategies, technical assistance, and so forth, if we keep in mind that the energy potential within the Nile Basin is 40% explored, we have to examine how the multi-purpose dam, the multi-purpose investment opportunities that are identified basin-wide, how are the countries' bilateral, trilateral, and even basin-wide cooperation can be supported through environmental flow. Our dream is not to have environmental flow as a standalone part. We need to streamline it, to integrate it within all the policy frameworks, all the water resources planning and management, and all the development initiatives. So whenever we have agriculture, wetlands, basin management plan, or even a water resources plan for the country, or the transboundary water resource management policies and strategies, we need environmental flows to be considered systematically within those planning process, and we need to standardize the procedure basin-wide to build the confidence, the knowledge, and the trust between the countries in order to sustain the natural resources for the livelihood on one hand, and to promote the cooperation and joint planning on the other.
Mohsen, thank you very much. I think that emphasis on integration into wider water resource management and development, I think that the focus of the importance of environmental flows, not just to ecosystems, but also to the welfare of people, those are both going to be essential elements in the success of the strategy going forward and its implementation. I'd just like to thank you again for taking the time to be with us today to share these detailed insights into the strategy, and just wish you success in the future.
Thank you very much, Michael. Let me close by my dream. My dream is to have not just to build allies and networking and partnership, but to have a platform, a policy platform for UNESCO IHE, for MBI, for the leading development partners, for the donors, for the NGOs, for everybody to step in. And let us have a platform for a policy dialogue through which we can exchange ideas, we can learn from each other, we can learn by doing. There is no blue approach or blueprint approach. All of us are learning by doing, and all what we need is to join forces and to cooperate and collaborate and to have this kind of partnerships. We started by the regional economic entities, LVBC, IGAD, East African Community, and the others. My dream is to expand this, and this we have like a dialogue that is generating options and opening the horizon for a different policy dimension, regional integration, and hopefully basin-wide planning. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that's a dream that many will share, and I think that through cooperation and the kind of partnerships that you are inviting, the chances of success are much greater. So thank you again. I appreciate it greatly.